Hey, good evening, guys. It's Friday, and you know what Friday brings. It brings some YouTube and chill. How is everyone this Friday? It's Friday. I'm Ted Santos, and I'm here to YouTube and chill with you. And you know, on Fridays, I like to discuss the intimacy of relationships, dabble in a little sex, sometimes a deep dive into sex. I'm a little late. I was in Brooklyn managing some business issues. So could not get on at 7 o'clock. Came up with a topic that I think is interesting. People discuss it, but my concern is that people sometimes take on topics and they don't give all the facts, right? So come on in. It's Friday night and it's YouTube and chill time. As you come in, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And this one you'll definitely want to share. Men want to have this conversation, especially if you're in the US, especially if you're in an English-speaking country that has been infected by feminism. So join. We're going to talk about women abroad. I've lived in several countries, so I can actually talk about this topic, and I've dated women from all continents, so you could say I've gotten around in my life. So come on in, join us. We're gonna do some Friday night YouTube and chill. I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna do a screen share so that we can not just have my perspective. I want to give someone else's perspective who's also traveled and talked to others. But let me just say this: there's more to dating abroad than most people believe. So, yes, you can have your passport, all of that. These are good things. At the same time, there is more to consider than sometimes people realize. So it's Friday, and it's time to YouTube and chill. So guys, like the video, share it. Any support, you can use my PayPal or Cash App or the Super Chat. Support is always greatly appreciated. And the topic, as you see, are men finding better women when they go abroad? Are they really? I lived in Mexico, I lived in Belize, and I lived in Costa Rica. I lived in Mexico the longest. So I can actually speak to you about these things, and I've dated women from islands, from countries. As I said, I've gotten around. And I want to talk about what it's like dating women from other countries when you're in the US or going abroad and getting the real deal on what's happening in those countries. You know, a lot of guys just go down like weekend warriors, or they stay a week or two. Well, what's it like when you really live in those countries? Are there benefits? I would say yes. I just think you need to be, you need to have your eyes open. And it depends, you know, if you're just looking for a party, that's one way to rock it, right? You just go down, have a good time, and you come home. As they say, no love lost, right?
Let's do this. Now.
So I want to play. I'm going to do a screen share. I'm going to play a couple of guys under fair use. I'm just doing this for educational purposes. Before I give you all of my experiences, I want you to see what other people have to say about this, so we can get all perspectives and have a really honest conversation. I have some other things that I think a lot of guys are not considering, and I'll wait a little bit later. But let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it's like to find the woman of your dreams abroad. And hey, well, you know what? First, let me tell you, I had some thoughts about this. Here's what I was thinking. So this idea of going abroad is not new. So I said for millennia, men have found women in other countries to be exotic. For one, they look different than your mother country. Two, the man gets exposed to other cultures and languages, um, different traditions, different foods. Uh, Depending on the country, the woman really can have a very exotic look. She can look more beautiful than what maybe you see in your town, your state, or even your entire country, depending on which country. I'm right here at New York. Hell, even here in Jersey, I live in a town that has uh, Brazilians, Spanish people, a lot of Guatemalans, Koreans, um, Palestinians, Turkish, some Italian. And when I say Italian, they still speak Italian when you go in a store. There are Irish here. Who else? Palestinians, some Egyptians. So I live in a small town, and all of that is here. But when I go work, I go over into New York. Of course, you see even more. You see a lot of different cultures. So if you live in a big city, a metropolis like New York, you get exposed to a lot. But let's just say from Boston down to DC definitely does not represent the majority of the United States. And hell, if you go to Miami, definitely an international city. LA, Chicago. For the majority of the US, it doesn't look like what New York, it doesn't look the way New York looks. So it would be common for men to go abroad, and from most places. If you grew up in Ohio, hell, Mexican women can look exotic. So the one thing I was thinking is, since feminism has become such a major part of US culture, men now go abroad in large numbers to find women who have retained femininity and traditional values. In the US, feminism has taught women that femininity and traditional values are a sign of weakness. Stay-at-home moms, all these things, and women actually bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Right? They bought it. So the majority of women have abandoned those traits, even though men still desire them. In addition, women now believe they can compete with men in everything, even though they've not proven that they can, but at least in their mind, they believe they are. They even believe they can compete at being a man. And at the same time, women in the US demand men retain traditional values while she has no responsibilities. In fact, if you talk to women, maybe it's not as bad anymore. But what it's been like is, if you mention to a woman, well, what's your role in a relationship? They start screaming that's sexist and misogynist, and you're trying to control me. And this is the conversation women have been living, just like parrots, because they heard the feminists say that that's the way they should conduct themselves. Yet they're very clear on what it means to be a real man, and what a man's job is, and what men are supposed to do. So, when a lot of guys go abroad, if that country hasn't been infected with feminism, you're less likely to encounter those conversations. And even if those women have been exposed to feminism, they do a better job of understanding there's a role that she plays in a relationship with a man. And I saw that for sure when I lived in Mexico, hell, any of those countries, all of them. So let's do a screen share and see what someone else has to say about this.
Guys that are flying abroad for a broad woman are smart. They're doing the smart thing. They're living their life. They're being happy. And they are ignoring the haters, the YouTube haters that can't get their own passport, that are afraid to fly. Maybe some of these haters on YouTube are afraid to fly. What up, guys? It's Razor Rays here with y'all again tonight. And I'm here to talk to y'all about guys that are traveling abroad, flying out of the matrix to find love, passion, and overseas women to have relations with. I've been hearing for the past few weeks other YouTubers clowning guys, specifically black guys, brothers, for going and traveling abroad to find relations with women abroad. They call them passport pervs. They say that they are misfits because they can't get women.
Now that's interesting. I never heard of this term, passport pervs. Wow. I mean, on one hand, you have to really think heterosexual men are interested in women. And if a guy is willing to make sure he has a passport, buy airline tickets, book hotels, he's willing to pay all this extra money to meet women, that says a lot about the women in his country. That they've made themselves that undesirable that men are willing to go the extra yard. I mean, that's something that you would think women would start looking in the mirror at that. But I guess they haven't purchased enough cats yet.
Inside the matrix. So they must buy a ticket and fly miles away, far away to other lands to get beautiful women because they can't land a woman in the matrix, aka the United States of America. Tonight, I'm here to defend them guys that travel solely to get women abroad, away from the craziness of the matrix. Now, these guys that buy plane tickets to fly abroad to find the love of their life, to find a fling, or just to find a beautiful friend that they can talk to. These guys are doing the smart and right thing. Why stay in a country like the Matrix if you have trouble having a relationship, if you have trouble getting a woman that you really, really connect with, getting a woman that respect you, getting a woman that will not put you on strict child support when she gets mad when you break up and you are the father of her kid. I don't really blame them. Now, me personally, I've had many relationships within the matrix. Some were long relationships, some didn't work out. Well, pretty much all of them really didn't work out because right now I'm single. But I've had some good relationships, and sometimes over time they just the flame just goes out. So guys that really can't really get women in the States, in the Matrix, I say fly abroad. Try the woman abroad. And I say, why not? You only live once. Make yourself happy. You guys are straight up haters against guys that are trying to fly. Of your life. And any hater on you.
Sorry. Okay. I didn't get a chance to review that. I wanted to get to you guys. And the big exclusive, thank you for that. I'll check her out, Bettina and Arndt. Actually, let me write that down. So, yeah, guys are taking off. What's going on, Lando? We're talking about, are men finding better women when they go abroad? So, we've got women here in the U.S. who, listen, I am never going to say a woman has masculine energy, because when a woman gets on all fours and starts barking and pretending to be a dog, I know she's not a dog. So I would never acknowledge her as a dog. And a woman who thinks she knows what it means to be a dog looks the same as a woman who thinks she knows what it means to be a man, and she doesn't. So there are a lot of women who are confused and have been told being feminine, being a woman, is weak, which technically you're weak if you let someone talk you out of who you are. I mean, that's pretty damn weak. And that seems to be a big problem in the US. So men are going abroad, and Brazilian women are, the whole world knows Brazilian women are beautiful, and lots of men are going there. Dominican Republic. Just as a side, a lot of women from the US are going to Dominican Republic to get artificial breasts and butts. The numbers are astounding, the amount of women who are going down there, because it's cheap. The problem is they don't have the same health care conditions. So men are going to Colombia. I hear men are going to Ghana. And I've dated women from different African countries. I dated a woman here in the US from South Africa. And very interesting, this woman had, I think, 7 sisters and brothers. She lived in Harlem, right, across the river. And she invited me to her house, and she had 2 roommates. Her roommates were her sisters, the oldest child in the family. And the one I was seeing, I think, was the youngest child. And then there was a sister also lived with them who was a middle. And I'm going to tell you, the way I was taken care of by these African women was unbelievable. Because all 3 sisters, when I got there, they had cooked a dinner for me, and I was sitting on the floor, let's say on a pillow or something, and they knelt down next to me, and they were bringing me, you would think, I was a prince, and they were bringing me dishes and say, how do you like this? And I made this one. And the other one's like, well, I made this one. They were close to feeding me grapes. And the woman I was dating warned me that her sisters were very mean. And as I had gotten to know them, even though they were always very cordial and kind with me, the oldest one for sure told me she flushed men down the toilet. She was kind of hard. What their culture didn't allow that, as I was a guest in their house. A very different mindset. Now, they have been affected by U.S. culture for sure, except I was never asked to go in the kitchen and cook. I wasn't asked to do, like, they handled anything. Anytime I had gone to visit, I was taken care of. I was made sure I was fed, I was comfortable. Um, Very different. Their attitude towards men and their attitude towards their father, they love their daddy's girls. And that was here in the US, and they had already been influenced by US culture and feminism, except they still retained, there was their culture because they came here as adults. They retained their culture. What's going on, country boy? Yeah, but men really have to think about, you really have to think about the women. It's not always just the country. So I'm gonna share do another screen share. You know, here in the US, so on one hand, and you go abroad, whether it's Brazil, I think that the dollar is a 4-to-1 exchange rate. So if you take women out there, you're getting a woman for pennies on a dollar. 25%, 75% discount. And a lot of times a lot better looking, better body. Part of the challenge here in the US is the fattest nation in the world. So there are a lot of overweight women, and they've been told to love their body, and you should accept it and love her as an overweight woman. And there's no reason a man has to accept that. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about, if you want to have children, your last thing you want to do is have children with a woman who doesn't take care of her health, because you compromise your child's health. That's a big problem. So yes, I can see the benefits of going abroad where they have better diets, they have a better mindset towards family. Living in Mexico, you saw the richness of family and the respect and regard for family. But there's another side to this. And I'm going to add to what this guy is saying. But first, I'm going to do a screen share because I want you to see, I want you to hear someone else. This guy's going to talk about the truth about dating overseas.
China has a large middle class. Japan has a middle class. So when you're dating these women, you're pretty much dating women around the same ilk. You know what I'm saying? D-Bizzle, what's going on? Yeah, man, we here today, man. I just want to get the brothers a heads up about dating overseas, because a lot of brothers, including myself, we go to countries that, I don't really like saying the word third world country, but in some of these countries, women have a different game when it comes to dating American men. And I just want to keep it real with the brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of videos going on, and brothers, I'm not going to say they're lying, but they're being just a little bit disingenuous.
And that's why I want to put this on the table. So there are a lot of pictures painted almost, hell, man, in the US, we are in love with Hollywood and fairy tales and fantasies, and we're almost condemned for laying out the facts. So it's like, just people are like, just tell me lies and I'll go over there, and then when you get run over by a truck, you don't understand what happened.
To a certain degree, you know what I'm saying? And I especially experienced it firsthand. So I'm not calling anybody out in the stream. I'm just saying that, let's just keep it 100. Let's keep it real. You know what I'm saying? Brothers is investing overseas, and you got to give these brothers a heads up, because these women, they have they have a different set of rules for dating men outside their country. You see what I'm saying?
And hear that. The way when you go, if you're going for a weekend or a week or even a month, and you go down as an outsider, especially you're going to countries like Dominican Republic, Colombia, Brazil, Philippines. Philippines, a lot of them speak English, but the other countries, uh, you don't speak the language, and you don't always know. There's so much of the culture that's wrapped around the language. And so there's a lot of things that you may not understand. There are lots of great things that you'll see and experience in other countries. But if you don't know the language, it makes there's some limits to what you'll see and fully experience. So it's good if you go into Brazil, learn Portuguese, spend some time learning Portuguese. Plus, they'll see you differently if you can speak Portuguese. Or a Spanish-speaking country, even DR, even if you find women who speak English, it's good if you can speak Spanish. They do have they see you differently, and I saw yes, Russian women they do love men here. So I started this out talking about how men like going to other countries because they find women exotic in those foreign nations. But you also have to remember sometimes in your own home you get taken for granted that you're just another dude walking down the street. But when you go abroad, there are countries where you can be seen as exotic. Uh, England is one that I hear. I'm not recommending because England is definitely infected by feminism, but there are places where you can be seen as exotic, and that has benefits. But just think, if you see a woman who's exotic, that there's sexual value to that. But as a man, is that the only value you want to have to a woman? Is I'm asking to think about that. You know, it's great to have sexual market value because you're exotic, but as a man, you really want to command more than that. So let's hear what else this guy has to say. If you're just coming in, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe and then hit the bell so you can get notifications. And I'm really taking on this conversation as to whether or not men are finding better women when they go abroad. So let's dive into it. Let's hear what someone else has to say, and I'll share my experiences later.
It's a lot of things these women be hiding. These women be hiding children. These women be hiding their profession. You know what I'm saying? Like when you date women in a third world country, it's a whole different mentality, bro. And that could be a good thing in certain instances, but it can also be a bad thing in certain instances. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're out there, you know, and you basing your life basically on survival, then it's different elements at play here. You know what I'm saying? Because a beautiful woman is not going to walk around broken, hungry, and homeless. Show me last time you seen a beautiful homeless woman anywhere in the world. You know what I'm saying? Some of these women will use their looks, and brothers need to be aware when they travel in these countries that, you know, there isn't really a large middle class.
Hey, just as a side note, right in New York City, I met two women. They were homeless, and one of them she was very attractive. She was probably about 5'9". She was beautiful. She had a nice body. It seemed like they were ready to make themselves available to me. I was walking behind them. You know, I'm in a suit, and they made themselves like that. Who's homeless? Something's not right. That woman made a bad turn somewhere. So I didn't even want to lay her down. There was maybe I was overcautious, but I've seen an attractive homeless woman for sure. And she looked like she was not homeless very long, but they were homeless. And yeah, country boy, I get that. Yeah, yep. More than sex.
So when you go to certain places like, the DR and everything, you do have a lot of women that will use their looks to survive. You see what I'm saying? Kobe Underdog. Hey, Aaron Ferris, do you know anything about Mexico and dating? Well, I've dated some Mexican women. As a matter of fact, the young lady I spoke to yesterday is from Mexico. And she gave me all the game. And that's the purpose of the stream. I wanted to relay that game she gave to me to you guys, to the fellas. Right, D Bizzle. That's another thing. We're going to get to that in a minute, man. We're going to get to, if you take a woman seriously, bro, you need to be kind of over there. You know what I'm saying? Because when you over there, you can really learn about her. You can learn where she come from. You can meet her family. You can start conversating with her in her native tongue, her language. It's a big difference because when you over here in the Matrix, man, them women will tell you anything. Trust me, bro. They would tell you anything. I mean, I've talked to women in the Dominican Republic, bro. I met them in the club, and like I say, social media has changed things so much because if you have a woman's number in your phone, you're gonna ultimately get their Facebook contact. And if they don't know the right settings, you can literally go through all their Facebook photos and you'll know everything about them. Facebook really reveals a lot about a person, man. It really does. And with this particular situation, with this young lady that I met in the DR in Puerto Plata, she was married. She was married. You know what I'm saying? But she was telling me that she wasn't married.
Listen to what he's going to take, where he's going to take this conversation next about a married woman. These are the things that you need to be thinking about if you're going abroad to find women.
As a matter of fact, the woman changed her status on Facebook when I started asking her about her husband. I'm like, well, aren't you married? You know what I'm saying? But it's different rules out there because sometimes in these countries, some of these husbands be knowing what their women doing. That's how bad some of these situations are in these third world countries.
So almost like the husband is pimping his wife. He knows she's out there.
These fellas, you got dudes out there that will let their woman go out there and work them streets. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. They know. I mean, it's kind of like, I ain't gonna say it's normal out there for the women to do that, but beautiful women will use their looks to get what they want. They will definitely use their looks to get what they want, man.
Quitting network marketing is one of the best things I've ever done. I spent 6 years stalking gas stations and malls, ruining.
So I just want to, appreciate you guys for coming on in, but I'm gonna get right into it, man. So when you're dating in these third world countries, man, you pretty much got three different type of women. Yeah, these bitches, they are slick. Yeah, they're very slick. Like I say, foreign women game is nowhere near as advanced as the game of Matrix women, though.
So that I can tell you, hey, what's going on Instagram? I see you guys coming in. We're talking about are men finding better women when they go abroad? Are the women much better? And I'm doing a screen share and sharing some people who have gone abroad. I've lived abroad. I speak several languages. All of that is an advantage. But he's saying women in other countries have a different game, but they still may be gaming you. But there are aspects. There's a level of innocence that you'll find. Some of you may find that very attractive. That some of the women that you meet abroad, especially you meet them in their country instead of here, they'll they'll be honest about things, and you'll be surprised that they were actually honest. So there's some levels of transparencies, and there are you don't have these sort of vindictive games that you see here in the U.S. Uh, the way you may get that is if they lived here for a little while and have been exposed to it. And they may, and as this guy was saying in the beginning, if they lived here, there are games that they would play with you that they will not play with the men in their country, because they know the men in their country will not tolerate that. So there may be two sets of rules that they live by, but their game they won't play games in the way that you have been accustomed to here in the US.
Like I tell brothers all the time, yeah, these women are beautiful and gorgeous, but if you're a black man and you've been dating for the last 10 years, you can see through the bullshit kind of right away. You know what I'm saying? It's not difficult. But I'm gonna break down these three different types of females real quick, man. So, unfortunately, in a lot of these countries, you don't have a large middle class, right? So you dating females who might not work, or if they do work, they don't have a lot of money. And if they're beautiful, they would use their looks for money any type of way. Not necessarily selling it on the street, but at the end of the night, and this goes for especially the Dominican Republic, unfortunately, they will have a handout. You see what I'm saying? They will have that handout for you, fellas. It's coming. Not all. I've had situations where I've dated women in the DR, and they were very cool. They had jobs and everything. But some of them women, they're gonna be your older women, your women with the education and whatnot. A lot of them in Santo Domingo and Santiago. If you're dealing with certain tourist areas, you're getting, the majority of a certain type of woman. You feel me? Now, if you are in, say, Colombia and Brazil in certain cases, you do have more of a larger middle class in those countries. The thing about them countries is some of them women be kind of double dipping on you a little bit, fellas. You know what I'm saying? I remember I was in Brazil in the strip club in the Termas, and one of my boys had recognized one of the strippers. And he was just like, yo, hold up, what you doing in here? Because I guess it was his homie's, it was his girl's friend or something that he knew. And he was like, yo, what you doing in here? You know what I'm saying? If you've been to a Brazilian strip club, you know what I'm talking about. They turn up in them strip clubs in Brazil. Like, it's nowhere near like the strip clubs in America.
Hey, just quick note on that. And the big exclusive, I want to answer your question, but just give me a few minutes. In Mexico, living in Mexico, the strip clubs, man, these women wear no clothes you can touch. They're one place, the dressing room had no walls, no windows. You just watch the women dressed in lockers, like they had no privacy. I've heard stories of a woman, the stripper, taking a guy and sticking his fingers up in her. So, and the women are grabbing your ass, your dick. The first time I went into a Mexican strip club, I took 3 steps and I felt some woman grab my dick. I was like, this must be like the Wild West. There are no rules here. I was in Acapulco, and I had never experienced that before. So different rules all the way around, man.
They really turn up in those joints.
What's going on,
so
Justin?
He's asking like her, like, yo, what you doing in here? And she's like, yo, I need some money. I needed some money to pay some things off. So, she was in the club. Now they do that here.
Right. Women here in the U.S. do the same thing. They can be gorgeous and they'll just go work in a strip club. Right? They needed some money. They use their looks. Maybe that's something that's universal. maybe all countries or most. I'm sure there are countries where that would be more of a problem, like some Middle Eastern countries where they are very strict. Maybe in China. What's going on, Justin? Well, we're talking about are men finding better women when they go abroad? So we're talking about women abroad. And I want to really get into some of the reality of it because there's so many fantasies, fairy tale like stories told about how beautiful and exotic and they're feminine and nice by all these things. But I lived in a few countries, and living there is different than visiting, especially when you speak the language. And so I'm doing a screen share, and I want people to hear someone else talk about this aside from me. And there are some other things to be concerned about when you talk about going abroad, living abroad, doing business abroad. And I think a lot of people are not really thinking this through. There's a catch to this.
But it's a lot of that going on over there as well. Let me put that up real quick. Sorry about that, fellas.
With H1, you can find information on just about every doctor in the world. What used to take hours now takes only minutes.
So you have that. Now, you do have an upper echelon of women in these countries. I will say that, especially Colombia. You do have an upper class of women, right? They're beautiful, they're educated, they come from families with successful businesses, you know? And as an American, you can get at these women. You can get at these women, man. You know, I saw a video earlier with a white guy was saying, you know, how it's dating in the Philippines for white men. He was telling his true story. That's what kind of gave me the idea to do this video. And he was saying that, you know, white guys can't really get to the upper echelon of women in the Philippines because those women are already, you know, dating, you know, they've already been conditioned to date high class Filipino dudes. But in my experiences, you know, I see brothers dating doctors and lawyers and successful, you know, women all over the world. In the DR, in Brazil, and Colombia. So it really is different for brothers. I mean, brothers, you do have a high sexual market value and you can get these women of an upper echelon. The reason being is because you're American. You know what I'm saying? You're American. And then that right there in itself gives you high value. The thing about it is Black culture has been projected and marketed all over the world. It's been marketed all over the world. So when you're in Colombia, talking to that Colombian, you know, nurse or that Colombian doctor or that Colombian woman who might be a lawyer, you know, or Dominican, she might be in real estate. You already got the battle halfway won, brother. I'm gonna tell you right now, man, brothers, you're gonna be winning overseas, man. You're gonna be winning overseas, major. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how it is for necessarily, you know, white guys, but I know for brothers, you know, I know a couple of brothers that dating high class women in the DR. They're dating high class women in Brazil. They're dating high class women in Colombia. So you can have access to this upper echelon of women. You just got to have your stuff together.
So, and I didn't listen to this whole thing. He wants to talk about 3 different women. So there are a couple of things. Yes, you can date women who come from affluent families. And a lot of times, if they wanted to come to the U.S., they could get here. They may be dating someone from the U.S. because they don't like, well, because the affluent class in all countries, even the US, is small, it's not big. So there may not be a sufficient number of available men in their nations. So if you make $100,000 a year in the US, you're doing really well in these other countries. The other side to that is and he's saying black men have sexual value. Yes, but I don't know if that's something to brag about. Because as a man, there's a very different kind of value you want to have in a relationship. And as black men, one of the things that they do know about black men is that your women disrespect you. And because they know that you have allowed your women to disrespect you, right? You can say, oh, no, we don't, because that's why we're going somewhere else. But in their country, they know their men won't allow that. Their men will check them. They check their women across the board in their country. And so they may see you as being more liberal than the men in their country, which will give them some freedoms that, and that's a big word, freedoms, but your liberal mindedness will allow them more wiggle room. And so they sometimes will disrespect you. It may not be as bad as what you see here in the US, but if you accept it, in the end, you're going to end up creating the very women you're getting away from. And they'll believe it's okay for them to disrespect or push back on you in a way that they would never do with their men. But they'll do it with you because they know that the women here in the US have been held to a much lower standard when it comes to respecting men. So a lot of women in other countries will try you because they know it's acceptable for women in the US to disrespect men. So they may try you. And if you're as a black man, they may try you the fastest and the strongest. And the other thing, which I'm not sure if he's going to say, there are women who will rotate several men from the US or Europe, and they'll have you sending them money. Hell, if you send $50 a month and she has 5 men sending $50 a month, in some of these countries, they can live well. 50 euros, $50. And that's their occupation. And when the wall is coming, because they have a better sense in other countries, they have a better sense of the wall, those women will choose one of those 5 men or however many men they have in rotation. That happens also.
You see what I'm saying? You just got to have your stuff together. And these are the type of women that I suggest that brothers really go for. You know what I'm saying? I know these women over in these different countries are very beautiful. They're very young. They're very submissive. But some of the times, man, these girls be so thirsty and hungry for a black American man that they'll just tell you what you want to hear. You know, and then while you over in America, they live in totally double lives. They do that. My Mexican girl told me that they do that all the time because what they want is they want a lifeline from America to their country.
Yes, some of them want to come to the US. And they know as a man from the US, you're going to be more liberal and you may bring them there to the US. What a lot of them don't want to come to the US. They'd much rather they could live a better lifestyle on less money if they have 5 dudes sending them 50 to $100 a month. And I've heard of stories of women talking about, oh, I had this emergency, I need $500 US. I mean, that will take her a long way.
right? So the end game for them, I just use that, because I just finished watching the movie. But the end game for them fellas is for you to be sending money to them. While you working your ass off in America, you know what I'm saying? Because most brothers that, work, we got to get it. We got to go out there and get it. You got to, open up businesses. We be hustling, brothers. Black American men, man, we get it. Despite what you see in the media, all of us is not Pookies and Ray Rays. I feel like the majority of us really are not Pookies and Ray Rays. You feel me? So they want that lifeline from America to them. They want to be asking you for a couple of $100 here and there. Can you send me this? Can you send me that? So they're willing to tell you anything, But like I say, you should be able to kind of see through that, though, fellas. Hey, if you're here, man, do me a favor and like the video, And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, man. I think the next video, like I said, it's going to be about the end game, but we're also going to talk about investing overseas as well. We gotta really start, finding solutions to our problems in the matrix. You know what I mean? Like when I met Charles Tyler, the brother, had a good vibe about himself, man. I met him along with Alan Harper on the beach in Brazil, and I liked how Charles was really more or less solution based instead of problem based. You know what I'm saying? A lot.
What's going on, Justin? Good to see you in the house. Thank you. So yeah, this is part of my concern that so many fantasies get painted. People don't get a full spectrum of the picture, what it's like going abroad. And that's why when I first started this show today, I said two things. It's much better if you live in the country for a while and you speak the language, because there's so much of the culture that's part of the language. And if you don't speak the language, there's certain things you just won't understand. There's some things that are either not translatable to English or another language, or it's difficult to translate because we don't necessarily have a context for that here. Hell, you can go to England and find they have certain things culturally that we don't have here. So a non-English speaking country, even more, you want to learn the language. This guy even said it, you get to see their family, you get to really see where they're from, the kind of life they lived, the friends they had. Just like if you were here, you want to see family and friends and the kind of people, the mindset of the kind of people that have influenced them. So this notion of let's not talk about the problems. My concern is we do like a quick brushstroke of the surface of problems and then want solutions for the surface. But if we really learn to understand the source of problems, just by getting to the source of it, you start to see hints or can completely understand the solution. It's easier to come up with solutions when you understand the source of the problems. So going abroad, yes. When I went abroad, I didn't go abroad looking for women. I spent 2.5 years living abroad, and I went through 8 different countries. 3 I spent the most time in. Mexico was the absolute most. Costa Rica was next, and then Belize. And in Belize, I went way off the beaten path. I was living with Mayan Indians in the jungle, no electricity or running water. Very different culture. So let's hear what else he has to say.
These brothers that I see making videos, and shout out to the brothers in the Black Manosphere. I'm not talking about anybody directly, but a lot of it is, I think it's paralysis by analysis to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? We've been kind of harping over the same issues for a while now. And it's like, okay, men solve problems. That's kind of what we do. And Charles Tyler, solved a major problem. He was telling brothers, man, just get your passports. So a lot of brothers have started to get their passports. But what's the next step? Because what you're going to see is that these foreign women have just as many games as American women. It's just different games. Now,
And see what he's saying. If you believe the solution is to just get a passport, what men are already finding in Dominican Republic, Brazil, Colombia, what they are already, especially DR, what they're finding is that you went to DR and you didn't learn the rules of engagement of the men in that country. So you went there and you really one up the men, right? You went there, you had more money. You could buy their women for pennies on a dollar. And literally what men are doing in these countries is they're creating entitled women who will end up being exactly like the women they want to get away from. So it seems like the solution is to just get a passport. But if you don't understand the rules of engagement, and that's what happened here in the US. Men one up to one another. Oh, I'll give you this. The next guy, well, I'll give you more. And the next guy, I'll give you more than that. I'll give you more. And that's what's happening in these other countries. They're throwing money at women. And the women become entitled. They know you're liberal-minded, that you don't create boundaries. And so as women, they're taking the bait, man. And you're going to end up with the same problem that you had here. So where's next? The moon, Saturn? Where are you going to find women next? The Middle East? I don't know. Middle Eastern men may not allow that. I don't know.
I will say dating overseas is 10 times better than dating in the Matrix.
I get that. It is better. When I lived in Mexico, I was dating a woman who had a business. Her mother started a chain of souvenir shops, and her mother died, so she took over. So here's this, what you would really call a woman who would be more independent than what you would even think here. She had a thriving business. She had maids, and she had all this. Yet, even with her success, she still said to me, "Man, I'm your woman. There's certain responsibilities I have, and I'm not doing them. You shouldn't have to cook. You shouldn't have to wash your clothes. You'll never have to wash your clothes again. I'll take care of that." There was a responsibility that she knew she had in a relationship. Now, I also never violated the rules of men in that country. I did not. I didn't one up the men there.
I will say that. But, you still got to prepare yourself. You still got to date a woman, for the most part. Now, if you're just having fun, do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I travel just for fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you a guy like me that's, tapping in them late 30s, you kind of want to find a woman of substance to a certain degree. You know what I mean? So if you want to, so this video, I'm just telling the brothers how to find a woman of substance, a woman.
So I'll just make one comment. If most of the men from the US and Europe are going to these countries, especially third world countries, just to have fun, you still are going to end up creating entitled women in those countries. That's the downside. Because when they see you coming, they know it's party time. And it becomes harder to get their respect. They will still respect the men in their countries. Just like this guy said, there are some married women and their husbands are okay with them going out and hustling men from other countries for money and having sex with them. He's call that pimping your wife. It's just the downside. I understand people want to have a good time. But what I've consistently said over the years is men have to learn how to check women. Women will be okay with that. And especially if you go into another country.
Woman that's been kind of cultured to be a counterpart to you. And in my opinion, you should shoot for the women in that upper echelon. Now, you do got some good women that's in the lower middle class that work very hard that would be great wives to us, right? They'll be great mothers to the children. You got some real down-ass women in Brazil and Colombia, fellas. I kid you not. I mean, you got some women that won't play no games. They won't ask you for any money. And if you in a relationship with a woman, if y'all friends, I'm not going to say that, you know, it really depends on the situation. If you've been rocking with a woman for the last 5 years and you go out there, like some of my homies do, you go out there, you know, every 2 months, and y'all have a rapport with each other, I can kind of understand you sending money to it. You know what I'm saying? But these women that you meet in these tourist areas.
Dear Teacher Ferguson, it has been so long since I attended your lessons. It has.
They going for the gusto right off the rip. They're going to be asking you for money within a couple of hours. And that's not the type of, you don't really want a woman that sees you as a trick. You know what I'm saying? Because the trick bag about women that make money off of their looks, we're just going to kind of code it a little bit, is that once they open that door, shout out to BGS, because he said this in the video earlier, once they open that door to making money off their looks, they're never the same. They have a skewed view of men, and they feel like every time they see you, you got to be giving them some money, even if they like you. You see, you understand? So that's why I was like, you know, most guys, we work too hard to just give our money away like that. So you really want to shoot for women that's in that lower to upper echelon, that little gray area right there.
So what I hear him saying is, don't shoot for the women who are at the bottom of the barrel. Even though it, like logic may say to you as a man, if I get the woman at the lower echelon, like I'm getting a woman for like 5 or 10 cents on a dollar. And I'm pulling her out of a bad situation. So she should be grateful for this. That can still turn into entitlement. And she has a poverty mindset, and you're expecting a poverty mindset to catch up to where you are. So most likely she's not going to be grateful. She's going to end up with a sense of entitlement. And if you bring her here to the US, she's going to get an entirely new education about entitlement. And she's going to be taught that she's not getting enough from you. So that's, you know, I don't know if this guy's going to talk about that. That's the one challenge of bringing women here from other countries, especially third world. I mean, if this woman is affluent in another country, it's probably easier for her to make that transition without being an influence. But the woman who's from a very low class is less educated and much easier to influence. I mean, hell, we see that right here in the US, right? So there are women who from a low class and they get an education, but they're still not really educated. They still can be easily influenced by outside forces. And hell, it's much easier to influence women. So there are some things you have to understand. There are certain universal things that apply to women. So women have the same, you know, the uterus, and they have hormones, and they have their menstrual cycle. And there are all these things that women will share across the board in any country, and they come with the same things that you have here. Now, interesting, women in other countries will be more responsible about any kind of moodiness during their period or when the period is coming on, as opposed to deflecting. I was dating a woman from Morocco, and She was always cool and everything was cool. She cooked for me. She did good things. And then one day she started nitpicking, like, I was like, oh my God. And I just asked her, when's your period coming? She said, why? I'm like, when is it coming? She said, next week. And I said, oh God, that's why you're doing this. And she just started laughing and she stopped nitpicking, just like it changed. She didn't get defensive. She didn't get upset. And I do find that women in other countries have a greater sense of being responsible than what we see here. So let's hear what else he has to say.
Is what I'm saying. Now, a lot of women can be found in Brazil and Colombia, Japan, even in the Philippines. That's the cool thing about being a brother. It was very interesting in that video I saw earlier of the white guy saying that white men can't get to women in the upper echelons in the Philippines. I'm telling you, it's not the same situation for us brothers. I'm telling you, it's not. You really can get to these women of any echelon in any of these countries.
Interesting.
Yeah, man. Most definitely, D Bizzle. Yeah, D Bizzle says even the guys from overseas, they would come up as well if they figure out a way to bring US dollars somehow. Yeah, most definitely. Says, man, you bring up a good point. That got me thinking. If they keep the line open to the US, just a few US dollars goes a long way in their country, so we can't, the ones that's using their looks. Yeah, most definitely, man. Most definitely. So yeah, fellas. You gotta watch these females though. Definitely gotta watch these females, man. These females overseas, man, they kind of look at Americans like we're rich. But the thing about us is we have a large middle class. Most of us are in the lower to higher middle class range, and we have access to credit. So, we can get houses off of credit. We can invest in real estate off of credit. We can drive nice cars off of credit. Well, in these countries, they don't have lines of credit. You know what I'm saying? But to them, from the outside looking in, they feel that we're rich. So don't take it personal when the farm woman's asking you for money. She's just thinking that you come from the country where the streets are paved of gold. You know what I'm saying? They're watching the TV shows, they're looking at the music videos. Women in some of these countries are really still impressed by clothes and shit, man. You know what I'm saying?
Unfortunately, there's still a lot of women here in the US impressed still by clothes. So, yes, you can get a passport and you can go abroad and you can find women who are exotic. They look nothing like what you've seen here in the US or the UK or wherever you are. They're mixed with all kinds of races and they speak other languages and they have a higher regard for men. But there's something else that happens in addition to what I was saying is that you can end up creating the same entitled women in those countries. But there's another thing that's happening. So it's a money drain. So the more men that go to DR and Brazil, those countries benefit and you create businesses there and you have income coming there. In the 1960s, or let's say late 50s, the Black community engaged in something called desegregation, which allowed Blacks who only lived in their own communities. Desegregation allowed them to move out into communities where they were never allowed before. And by doing that, what they did is they took their money and their brain power. They took their examples of education and professional jobs or entrepreneurship. they took that and it created a void. So the children, instead of living next to an engineer and a doctor across the street from a lawyer, those were all signs of success. When those professionals left, the only examples of success they had were pimps and drug dealers. And those people who were, even though they were all living in one Black community, they still may have been middle class or upper class. And when they moved out, they took their dollars, which means all the businesses that were Black in that community would start suffering. And they took their money and gave it to other communities. And that's what's happening when you go abroad. That's the other side of it. So you could possibly end up with women in another country becoming entitled, and you finance that change of culture by taking your money out of the US and putting it in another country. And it's a financial drain, a brain drain. It's like desegregation 2.0 all over again. And desegregation actually hurt the Black community in the long run because it created that void and it was filled with something that wasn't good. And now you look at the amount of drug dealers and prostitution. I mean, there are women who will just have sex for $40. It's pretty blatant. Which gets me to answer a question that you asked, Big Exclusive. You asked a question about what's your opinion on Western women valuing money and being accused by men of being gold diggers? While women say that they see money as a signal that men can be a provider. So, yeah, I mean, hell, when I lived in Belize, agriculture, no electricity, no running water, living in the jungle. So the men were hunters for sure. Even though you could travel for, maybe it was a 2-hour ride on the bus to go to the market, where you could either buy goods or sell your goods. Men were hunters. They went fishing, like literally. They went hunting. They had hunting dogs. And they were an agrarian society. So literally they grew their own food. I mean, they were living off the land. So a woman wanted a man who could hunt. So there is that aspect that the woman is able, and the women took care of all the household. And when we were out in the field planting new crops, and we're talking like, more than 100 acres, chopping down the jungle with a machete, and the women prepare lunch and bring it out to you. It's a role. That's how they survived, that men and women depended on one another. So for the women to have children and raise them properly, she needs the man who can feed them. So I do get that if women want to be traditional. But something has changed in our society. And this is where I'm getting to the answer to your question. For decades, they used to do a poll every year, survey women in the US. And they would ask them, what's more important, to have a man who's a good lover or a man with a lot of money? And for decades, women always chose the man who was women would rather have a man who was a good lover over a man who had a lot of money. And somewhere in the mid 80s, it tipped over. There was a tipping point. And for the first time, the majority of women said, show me the money. I don't care if the man's a good lover. I want the man who has the money. And we've become more materialistic, and it's odd. The irony is women took on a more materialistic mindset, even though they were getting more and more jobs and brag about education and screaming they didn't want to play traditional roles, yet they still wanted a man to provide. So Uh, in other countries, women treat a provider with much greater respect. In the US, it's an entitlement. And that's my concern that's being created abroad. So uh, women in the US expect the man to hunt, to provide, and she has no role. In fact, she'll compete with him. So she no longer wants to play the traditional role of a housewife. And so I don't think it's as wrong as maybe what people think. I think the big problem is women have really in the US attempted to do a role reversal with men. You know, before the pandemic, 51% of the jobs were held in the US were held by women. So that means the majority of jobs were being given to women. That means they displaced a lot of men. That's a problem because what do you do with the men, especially when women still have the same, they didn't change their expectations for men. And so, like I said, the tipping point became show me the money. I don't care if you're a good lover or not. So we became more materialistic as a society. At the same time, when women bang their heads up against the wall and see they're not getting that guy, and you really strip down what they want from a man, the smartest women, they understand there are certain qualities and characteristics that are most important that make a man successful. And the smartest women look for those things. So the women who are just like, show me the money, often those are not the smartest women. And just as a side note, you guys have heard me talk about the rate of marriages in the affluent class hasn't dropped. In mainstream USA, the marriage rates are at all-time lows. In the affluent class, it hasn't dropped, and the divorce rate has been low. And it's not because of money. The divorce rate is low because of compatibility. I can't emphasize it more. All the research shows that women in affluent classes know who's compatible, and they're looking for men who are high quality, who have the capacity to be successful. So they're looking for certain qualities like integrity, ambition, effective communication, a plan. There's certain things they're looking for, family background, and not always, because you can be successful if you don't come from a successful family. So the women who just look for money often end up on dead ends, and yeah, maybe they divorce the guy and take some money, but she's alone, and that's hell. Look at Jeff Bezos' wife, his ex-wife. She married a school teacher, so she's even though she's worth billions, she didn't swear men off. She just really wasn't a match for a guy like Bezos in the long term. Same with Elon Musk, and what is he at? 3 divorces. A lot of women are not set up to be married to hyper successful men. They think they are. They want the, as you're saying, they want the provider. They want the money, but they're not really cut out for that lifestyle. So let's just listen to a few more things. So I really wanted to get that on the table. That there's a flip side, kind of a dark side to going abroad. And taking the money out of the US and giving it to other people, that money's not coming back here the way we think. So my concern is that men, if you're going to go abroad, man, you need to learn the rules of engagement of the men there, and not go to those countries with the liberal mind that you have here. You need to be not afraid to be a sexist. Like all the things that you can't be afraid to be masculine, like really masculine. I'm not saying abusive, but have boundaries, because the women are accustomed to that, and they will be responsive. And they may test you because they know you're more liberal, and they'll say they like that. The question is, do they respect it? And if we look at the amount of disrespect women in the US have for men here, is because men became way too liberal and the women don't respect that. So if you think that's just a US problem, and it's not even that it's female nature, men build societies and create boundaries. And when you remove the boundaries for women, you're going to have problems because they're not building the society and they don't understand all that it takes, the discipline and the commitment required to build. Yeah, you can outsource for love or wife or whatever in another country. Um, but my concern is that money is it's not strategic. Less men are going to get together and strategically, like almost like a movement, you're going to create business and opportunities in other countries. But it's not being done strategically. You just have a bunch of guys, like kind of Yahoo cowboys, running abroad and going to strip clubs and having a good time and just dropping their money all over the place, as opposed to building where you are. Like if you're going to do this, you need to be strategic and prepared to build, because you're going to have less power in these countries than you even have here.
I've had women ask me, can I bring them pairs of Jordans and stuff like that? Like they're really impressed out there in some of these countries, man. Really impressed by that. But yeah, man, that's the truth, man. You gotta keep in mind, fellas. Let's keep it 1,000 real quick, man. Appreciate all y'all brothers come in to hang out and listen to your boy today. Keep in mind that you don't speak their native tongue. That's number one. You know, you don't really know about their culture like that, and you know, it's a fantasy to a certain extent to just kind of go overseas and then bam, you fall in love with a woman. But it takes time, man. Just like it takes time in any relationship, it just takes time. You know, you got to really get to know that female, and it's going to help if you start learning the native tongue of that country. You know, that's going to give you an inside door. That's why I learned about hanging with my brother from Guatemala. When I went to the DR, a whole nother side of the DR was open to your boy, because my homie Guatemala homie, he spoke Spanish. So we're all over the island, and I got him as a translator, and I'm really seeing the culture now. You feel me? So yeah, man, you really got to understand that these women, you know, they have their own game about themselves. Listen, you know, I know what you've heard. My brothers that haven't traveled, I know what you've heard. It's a lot of good, beautiful women overseas, but don't be a sucker. Don't be a sucker, man. You know what I mean? Take your time with it. Don't be sending money right off the rip.
My mission in life is to spread positivity.
God. I heard him say, don't just jump out sending money. But the question is, why are you sending money anyway? I mean, if you married the woman and you're keeping her in that country, I understand that. But why do men believe they owe women money if you're having sex with her? No question, she's getting as much out of sex, if not more, than you are. Why do men believe they owe women money? See, that all that's going to do is create entitlement. You don't owe women money here, you don't owe them money abroad. Your money, you trade you trade your labor, your brain power, your hand power, manual labor. You, in exchange, you get currency for the skills you've developed over time. And if you're paying for a vagina, which she got for free, she didn't earn it, she didn't trade. Why do you feel like you owe women money in any country? I don't get this. Like, who's promoting this? You're giving her money because she's a woman. I mean, and then you'll end up with the same. What she'll do is take your money and have a good time with the bad boys in her country. She'll spend it on him. About 2 years ago, I did a show about a guy who was saying, how can you date gold diggers with no money down? And this guy talked about how, and this was here in the US, in California, and he talked about how he was dating one particular gold digger, and he was dating this woman who was in her 20s, and this guy was also in his 20s. Maybe he was 2 years younger. But this woman he was dating, this young woman in her 20s, was dating a much older guy, and she was gold digging with that much older guy. And she told the older guy, can you make some suits for me for my father? And the guy said, sure. But the suits were for the guy who was banging the gold digger for free. So if you feel entitled to give women money, like, these kind of things happen, especially in another country, and you're not living there, man. You're going there and you're having all these feelings for the woman. And like this guy was saying, some of these women are living a double life. And sometimes you're not the only one. I know a guy here in the US who was dating a woman in DR for maybe 5 years. He was going back and forth. And he proposed to her and she said no. And then he saw somewhere on social media that she got married to some other dude. So apparently she had something going on. I'm assuming, I mean, if she said no to him after several years of being involved, and this guy was ready to bring her here, he had all kinds of feelings for her. And he saw these wedding pictures of her marrying some other dude. So this guy was a little crushed by that. Like, he thought this woman was going to be great here in the US. He had all this trust. I'm just saying, man, it's not as cut and dry as you think. Yes, these can be some beautiful, exotic women. Some of them have natural bodies, some of them don't. Many of them have beautiful bodies. As a man, why do you believe you have to pay for access to a woman's body? From where I'm standing, when it comes to sex, hell, I'm doing most of the work. She's getting more pleasure out of it than I am. I know she is. She should be paying me. This is a wild thing. I went to a bachelor party and one of the strippers asked if I wanted to pay to have sex. I told her she should be paying me. She didn't like that too much. So that's what I'm getting at. So, I mean, if you're just going to pay women, you might as well just stay here. You might as well go to a strip club here in the US and go get some hot chick who could be from here or from another country and do the same game. I'm not recommending that. Like, I just get that straight. I'm not suggesting you marry a stripper. But if you're going to go to another country and do the same thing there that caused the problem here, what are you really gaining? So let's hear a few more minutes of what this guy is saying.
And do your investigation. If a woman don't have social media in 2019, or she won't give you her social media accounts, it's a reason for that. It's a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? And keep in mind, at some point, her social media, her Facebook will pop up in your phone, her phone. Don't send her a friend request right away. Take a look at her Facebook page so you can kind of see, a little bit about her. These women will hide children. They will hide husbands. They will do anything they can to get some money up out of you because their situation is dire in comparison to our situations over here. In our situations over here, we might not be able to go to the club for a week. We might not be able to take a vacation for a year. Even if our car get repossessed, we might have to scare down around the bus for a while, whatever. But over there, survival is everything over there. Now, we're surviving over here as well, but we do have access to lines of credit and we do have jobs. You get a certification or a trade, you kind of in the game. Well, over there, you can have a certification, you can have a trade, you can have a college degree, and you're still broke. I know women that are school teachers over there in Colombia, and they was on strike because they weren't getting paid that much. You're right, D Bizzle. You gotta learn. You gotta learn, man. Most definitely. But that's the negative side of things. I don't want to be too negative. You know what I mean? Here's the positive. It's a lot of good women overseas. That's the positive thing. That's what I'm trying to say too. Now. Don't get it twisted. It is a lot of good women. You have a great chance of meeting a down-ass woman in Brazil. A large probability, like 80, 90% within a few weeks. Just learn a little Portuguese and go outside of the tourist areas. That's the key to a lot of these countries. Like when I met my girl I'm talking to now, out there in the DR, I met her on a beach off the beaten path at a nice little restaurant where she was sitting there with her sister, eating some ice cream. Totally different vibe you would get if you had the beach in, let's say, Sasua. You know what I'm saying? I had to really, speak my game. I had to really, put on a little bit for her. And we had a good conversation and we dated for a couple of days and we still talk to this day.
You see, the world has changed. You don't need to sell at events and galleries anymore. You can go.
So that is good advice. Stay away from the tourist areas if you're going to go abroad. And listen, if you're going to live there, that will give you greater access to like the people, not the tourist traps. And you'll get a sense of who's who and different sections where people live. Like certain people have names. This in Brazil, it's like, this so-and-so person. Some people really do have names. Same as here. I mean, there's wealth. There are billionaires in Brazil and Mexico, DR. You have millionaires and multimillionaires in Brazil. There's old money and new money. So if you can afford to live and really explore the country and find out who's there, like by me living in Mexico and people knowing that I live there, I go to the gym, the grocery store, like women saw me frequently around. They knew I lived there. So there was a different regard that people had for me. The restaurants, the waitresses. And part of it is because if you'll live there, then part of the way they see you is not like in Spanish they call it presumido, like stuck up, like you're too good to live in their country, but you'll come there, take what you want and leave. But if you live there and become part of it, they see you as being down to earth and it's easier for them. Like you become almost like a normal person, part of their culture. Like Mexicans generally see you as a foreigner, even if you come from a Spanish-speaking country, they always see you as an outsider. Mexico has this mindset of blood is thicker than water. You're always an outsider. Other countries are not as strict with that mindset, except if you live there and become part of the community, it becomes easier for people to embrace you and include you in the culture, and that's where a woman is going to have a much greater affinity for you and not feel like you're a trick, like she's prostituted. So what else does this guy say?
So that's the positive thing, and you can be any age. That's the cool thing, you know.
That's another thing about Latin American countries. There's much less of a hang up. So for a woman to date a guy, like a 20-year-old woman dating and marrying a 40-year-old guy, is not a big deal. A 15-year-old girl dating a 25-year-old man, you see this, and they get married one day, and no one, bats an eye at that. So there are, if you're looking at Latin America and maybe many countries, I think feminism kind of pulled a plug on older man, younger women kind of thing. Hell, my grandparents were married, and my grandmother was 16, my grandfather was 21. You're less likely to see that today. So that's another thing. Being older is less of a barrier, even though I think it can be less of a barrier here in the US, but it's like not even a conversation. You're just still a man and a woman, even with a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old.
I love Brazil, man. Brazil is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I can't wait to go back there. Dating in these countries, man, it don't take long. It don't take long, especially once you get off the beaten path, especially once you start to develop friendships. And the Brazilians are good people, man. They're very good people. They're very down. Colombians is good as well. They're very good as well, man. It's some good people. Good people. So that's the positive thing. That's the positive thing. D Bizzle, you got any plans? Got any travel plans this year, brother?
So I just wanted to address this topic, and I wanted to paint a much fuller spectrum than people do. I mean, this guy dealt with the positive and negative. Like I said, me living in Mexico, hell, me living in Belize with Mayan Indians, I stayed with a family, and he had living at home. He had a daughter who was 22, a daughter who was 20, another one who was 18, and another one who was, I think, 10. And then he had two sons. One was 7, the other one was 18. Well, the 18-year-old daughter, because I worked with the men in the field, I did everything. That 18-year-old daughter, like that, said, "Oh, I'll wash your clothes." She literally washed my clothes in a river every day. And we were dirty working in the field. There was no hesitation. I never felt that she was working. She took a joy in doing that. Hell, I visited, years later, I visited Honduras. And some of you guys may have heard of the guy, Dr. Sabi. I hung out with Sabi for almost a month. And he had some Honduran people working on his resort. And this very, very attractive Honduran woman just asked me, I guess she seemed like she was attracted to me, but unfortunately I was traveling with a woman. But this attractive woman just says, "Do you want me to wash your clothes?" And she spoke no English. So I gave her my clothes and she washed them. There's this normal sense of taking care of your man that you'll get from women in these, especially these Latin American countries. Hell, I dated a woman from DR who stunning, just like body, tits, ass, face, hair, just gorgeous, stunning woman. And she came to my house. The first time she came to my house, she saw dishes in a sink and she asked me if I had gloves so she could wash the dishes. I didn't ask her, I didn't say anything. She just went, she saw the dishes and I said, sure, I have some gloves. I gave them to her and she washed the dishes and that was it. Like I've seen the same with Caribbean women. So there is this kind of commitment to work with your man and play a role, and there's a care. There's certain things that they will take care of for you, and there's no way anyone here in the U.S. can take that away. So there's a sense of catering to men and not having a problem with it. There's a healthy attitude towards sex. Which makes sex very enjoyable. The women are not having sex as a favor or you owe me money for this. So that part is very pleasant, very enjoyable. If you bring them here to the U.S., I'm assuming somehow they're going to get altered because the women here are going to be like, God, you do all those for him. He's using you, and they may play some mind games with their heads. But the flip side is a lot of you guys are doing too much for these women, like just way too much. And by you doing too much, these women are going to become accustomed to that and feel like eventually you owe them. Like, oh, you'll do that, and what did I have to do? Nothing. These women know when they hit like 26, 27, and they're not married, that's a problem. Like they see the wall coming at 30, like hard. Well, a lot of you guys go down there and you say, oh, you're beautiful. Every man wants you. You're 30. No, they know it's over for them. So don't go down there trying to hype these women up when the rules of engagement is giving them a very different view of reality. They have to earn. They know it's their job to cater, right? So you take care of your woman, you treat her well, but she's got to cater to you. Nothing's free. So too much is being given to women. And my biggest concern is that there's a money drain happening from the US that's going into these countries. And just like this guy said, you go too far down a socioeconomic class and you are, man, you're going to end up with a big problem. Logically, it might seem like she's going to appreciate, but here in the US, the average person that wins a lottery, a big lottery, they squander it, they blow it because they're uneducated about how to manage money. Well, you could end up being a lottery ticket for a woman who's from a very, very low socioeconomic class, and she's going to squander you. So your best bet is to look at, as this guy was saying, the more affluent classes. And even in the more affluent classes, the women still know that there's this level of catering that happens, even if she's a lawyer or a doctor or engineer. Yes, the women in the US do get mad when they see you with attractive women in other countries. And like I just said, it's easier. If you're 40, it's easier to date a 25-year-old, and her family doesn't think anything of it. She doesn't think anything of your age. You're a man and she's a woman. So there are some real benefits. I'm cautioning guys, about going down in these countries and just thinking about having a good time, because you're creating an entirely new culture that you will not be able to reverse. And I know you can't reverse it because men haven't been able to reverse it here in the US. They're accustomed to men putting their foots on their neck. And you need to be comfortable saying no when it's time to say no. They will respect that. Can't just be giving them everything. Same with women here. There are times to say no. There are times that you take care. There are times that, hey, no, you have to earn this. So if you go down to these other countries, even in Africa, you'll end up creating the very things that you wanted to get away from. So when I live in another country or date women from other countries, I let them express their culture. I do not get in the way of that. I do not try to convince them to be like here. And don't feel like you're a sexist. Hell, being a sexist just means you see women as the weaker sex, the weaker gender, and there's a level of taking care. That's part of sexism. Women actually don't realize they're actually asking us to be sexist. If you carry a woman over a puddle, that's sexist because you're seeing her as weaker. If you pay for dates, that's sexist. So, yep, good question, the big exclusive. I ask a lot of questions. So the first thing is your mindset has to be like this. Before you invite anyone into your life, you have a right. You have a right to choose who you invite into your life. No one has any say, not your parents, no one has any say over who you invite into your life. I mean, your parents could be instrumental in helping you pick someone who has the same kind of family values. So if you take on the mindset that before you invite someone in your life, you have a right to interview them. So if a woman is traditional, you want to know how long has she been traditional this way, and how was that expressed in other relationships. You want to know how she's going to handle things. And look, people say, oh, you have to just wait for the actions. If you only wait for the actions, you'll never know if she's lying, if her actions are consistent with what she's saying. So it really is important to have conversations to see if when the rubber meets the road, meaning when the situations actually come up, are they consistent with what they are saying? So I ask a lot of questions. I ask questions about how a woman wants to be seen or valued in a relationship. I ask specifically, why would I or any man want to be with you? What are the things that you do? And I want to know, well, how long have you been doing this stuff? Sometimes when women are acting, they kind of overdo it. Like they're trying to prove. There's a sense of trying to prove I'm this way as opposed to naturally being this way. If you spend time with any of her friends or family and see if she switches up, have conversations about feminism. See, there in the US, most, if not all, women actually promote feminism, even if they claim to be against it. As soon as a woman says, I have my own money, she's promoting feminism. So there are so many things. is if a woman is claiming to be traditional, is she willing, and this is a clear question, is she willing to be a stay-at-home mother and take care of the things? And is she willing to really work for you? Stay-at-home mother, she works for you. So, it's amazing. A woman has no problem getting up early to make it to work and driving through rush hour traffic and get to work on time every day and work for that guy who signs her check. Is she willing to do the same for you? And you guys have, and big exclusive, I'm still answering your question. Part of working for you is that she needs to go out there and network. See, while you're out working, you're hunting, there are people that she needs to be meeting that if you start your own business, they become clients or employees or vendors with preferential pricing. She's meeting women who are married to successful men who may be able to hire you in a job, regardless of what your profession is. For her to do that well, she has to understand what you do, what you need, and what are ideal situations or ideal clients for your business. She has to really understand that. So she needs to take enough interest in you and enough care to make sure you're taken care of. I mean, hell, there are women who network so well that if her husband's company shuts down on Friday, like files bankruptcy, and they're out of business on Friday, that woman has networked so well, she picks up the phone Friday, and by Monday, he's working. Because she calls some woman who's married to some guy who either hires him directly or knows someone, part of his network, and can get him in. A lot of guys don't realize how valuable a woman can be in that regard. Like, women are supposed to have these social skills, but what women can do really well is bond. Women can create great bonds. And if she creates great bonds with other women who are married to successful men, that can open doors for you in so many ways. You can find a business partner. You can find an employer, clients, investors in your business, or investor to help you start a business. Like, these are critical things. And this is a woman working for you in your life. Like, if she thinks her going out making $75,000 to $150,000 is worth more than her finding you clients that can be worth a lot more. I mean, I personally worked with a guy, you guys, I'm sure you heard me say this. He was the president of my consulting firm. His wife actually got him his largest client by being a soccer mom. She did not work. And she did get him several clients only by networking with other women, but she had to know which women to network with. So she had to be intelligent enough to understand her business, her husband's consulting firm, and he consulted to businesses. So you have a right to interview a woman. The big exclusive. And if she feels like you're interviewing her and she doesn't want to answer questions, I don't know, maybe does she have something to hide? But before you invite anyone into your life, you have a right to know who the hell they are. And it doesn't mean that it eliminates any surprise, but you want to have a very good sense as to who you're inviting into your life. That was kind of a long answer, but and I think with the amount of men just in YouTube alone, or social media, who are expressing discontent with women, a lot of women are just listening, right? And so by listening, they're figuring out things that they should stop doing, but they actually never learn to be the kind of woman you want. They just learn to stop doing this. And then they hear like slogans. You need to be fit and feminine and friendly. And then a man will want you. You need to say certain things. You need to stop doing certain things. And that's dangerous because we're creating actors. We're creating a lot of women who are actresses. Hey, thank you to Big Exclusive. And so, you know, your question actually can relate to women abroad. So just like women here can be great actresses, women in other countries, they also can be actresses. They can be married, they can have children, they can be prostitutes. They can just want a green card. They just want to get here. I mean, I've heard stories of guys bringing women from Ethiopia, and one day he comes home and she's just gone. She disappeared. And she went and stayed with someone, came and got her. And she won't go back to the guy. And she says, oh, I'm terrified because he's going to beat me. And it doesn't even have to be true, but she just wanted to get here. This is the risky part. Men, some people say you cannot interview a woman for compatibility. And I say that's an inaccurate thing to say. So some of the things that I just laid out, but the most important part, and you hear people say this, is your own personal development. The more you develop your mind, the more you're able to see what's in front of you. I don't want to call it like a bullshit meter, or you can smell a player. But when you develop your mind and you get clear about what you want and who you are, it becomes even easier, because when you know what you want, you know what questions to ask. And you'll know when you meet a woman who knows what she wants, because she's going to ask questions too. And she's going to know there's a role, and there's a role that she plays in your life if she wants to really be invited into your life. So your own personal development is key. It just makes it easier. Just think of it this way: if you became a master of martial arts and you studied different forms of martial arts, the fact that you're a master of martial arts allows you to be able to distinguish the different forms other people are doing. So there's got to be some level of mastery over self for you to be able to distinguish what a woman is doing, when it's in your favor and when it's not. I'm not saying it's bulletproof. I'm saying you'll be way ahead of the game in the US or abroad. And women abroad, there's a refreshing innocence that you'll see. They'll tell you things and you'll be wondering, wow, she admitted to that. So yeah, guys, everything I'm saying, and plus the screen shares that I did, these are things that I'm committed that guys have these as sort of common knowledge, that you're able to take care of yourself and get the things that you want out of life. I mean, we can talk all the red pill, black pill, MGTOW. At some point, heterosexual men are going to want a woman in your life, and a good woman at that. So how do you find her? And knowing how to interview a woman who's compatible with you is really important. And I'm going to, if you guys haven't read this already, if you haven't read my book, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. This book is filled with tools and a mindset that helps men manage conflict with women, check women, understand roles women should play, roles men should play. I mean, Here's Why You Can't Find Love. It deals with how people sabotage themselves in life. And what you get out of this book, it's all completely transferable to your career. So if you want to move up as an entrepreneur or in a company, there are there are human relationship skills that are good in your intimate life, and they're also good in your professional life. They're good with your friends and family. And the book is short, but it's very powerful. It's packed with a lot of stuff. So you can buy it on Amazon. I'll drop the link in the description, where you can find the link in my Instagram profile. But yeah, guys, I'm committed that men get what they want. And I'm committed that women learn to give men what they want before they put their hand out. There are lots of women who just have their hands out. And that's in no one's best interest. Everyone loses. Women need to learn the value of a man, and men have been diminished. Men, we've been told that we only want one thing, and this is just a lie. Yes, sex is important, but hell, maybe the real secret is women often have larger sex drives than most men. So how do you reach into her and pull that out and release the Kraken? You release that Kraken. So guys, if you haven't smashed that thumbs up, hit that like button for this video. As I said, my commitment is to give you quality content and things that you can use immediately to have a better quality of life in all aspects of your life. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe and smash the bell. Hey, Silent Lamont, man, you come in at the end of the show. And yeah, I appreciate your support, guys. If you haven't checked me out on Patreon, check me out over there. I have a lot of content that I just haven't, it hasn't been seen anywhere else. If you like the wisdom that I put out here, there's a lot of it there. Hey, yeah, that's actually the big exclusive. That's a big one. So, okay. All right, appreciate that. Thanks. So the question of how do you protect your woman? So one thing is, if you could live in her country for it doesn't have to be like a year or years. Living in her country allows you to have a different affinity, and you won't be as much as an outsider. So, and also the other thing happens with living in her country is you learn her language, especially if she's from a non-English speaking country. So you want to have access and understanding of her culture and her language, because if you live in her country and you understand her culture, you can hold her accountable to her culture for when she steps out of it. I mean, I've dated women from other countries, and I've told them, hey, this is not tolerated in your country, and I'm not going to tolerate it here. You can't control who a woman meets and speaks. Even if she's a stay-at-home mom, she's going to meet other women. And there's a chance other women are going to say, oh, that guy is taking advantage of you. So all the things that can potentially happen, women are going to try and trick her out of her marriage. You need to have all of these conversations up front before you even bring her here, and help her understand consequences. I mean, you can try and shelter her and make sure she never speaks English, and you can keep her in a house and never let her out to meet anyone else. That could potentially make it worse, because women here in the U.S. will say, "Oh, you're a prisoner, and you have to get out of this." So you have to actually be able to speak her language and have a good understanding of her culture, so that you can talk about the things that are going to happen. She needs to be prepared for that. So I lived with a woman from South America. We lived together for 3 years. And up front, I talked to her about those things, but she really didn't want. She didn't really understand it until after. That's unfair. Sorry. I was going to say she didn't understand it until afterwards, but that's untrue. Because for about almost a year, she disengaged from her entire family. She wouldn't take phone calls, not from her mother, her sister, father, no one. And I said to her, look, your family's going to start to worry about you if you don't take their phone calls. So sure enough, I received a call from the police in the town next to me in New Jersey. And the police said that I was holding this South America woman a prisoner in my house, locked in a house, and she couldn't come out. And her mother and sister had been trying to get in touch with her, and they cannot. And the police accused me of not allowing her to speak to her family. And they told me if her family didn't hear from her that day, they were kicking my door in to find out if she was locked in my house. So she did understand that disengaging from certain people was in her best interest to have a great relationship. And so part of the way I was able to do that was to talk about a lot of these things up front. So I would say that you have to have these upfront conversations and have her get clear that people will help you. They will help you sabotage a good relationship. And then when it's over, they'll have you as misery loves company, joining them. Like, you really have to help them understand it. So that woman who was living with me, once she called her mother and her family was back in her life, you could see the change. When she disengaged from the family, we kind of had a relationship in a bubble, but it wasn't that I forced that. Like, she wanted that. She even said to me, hey, I don't want to contact my family because I'm happy where I am, and you don't understand. She said to me that, she said, Ted, you don't understand the kind of things that they'll say to me. So I'm happy not contacting them. That just couldn't go on forever. So there was intervention by her family, and eventually they influenced her and she made some poor decisions. So really good question. So, and you can't be afraid to tell a woman no. You can't be afraid to set boundaries. You can't be afraid to have high expectations. Like, if you just try to give this woman, you bring her from another country here, and you're like, I'm just going to give you the world. It might seem logically that if you just give her the world, she's going to appreciate that. But if she works for it, if she has to earn what she gets from you, and you're not afraid to say no to certain things and explain why, if you just give her everything, she's going to just be entitled, and that will backfire. Yep, family can be good. And so the part about that also is what the guy was saying. So I had a woman who wasn't from an affluent class of people. You know, I visited her country a couple of times. I mean, once I ended the relationship, she has tried to come back in, but there's just no way that's going to happen. I even did a video with her. Actually, I did a video, and I had her talk about how she allowed other people to influence her. So if you meet a woman in another country, let her see that video, because I did the video with this woman, South American woman, and she admits that she allowed herself to be influenced. So sometimes women have to learn the hard way, and sometimes their lesson can be good for someone else. So yeah, it's okay. And she was younger than me. Anyway. So yeah, the socioeconomic class would have been a problem also. Yeah, I forget where the video is. It was a when was this? God, I think it was before COVID. You'll recognize the video. The picture for it is me with a woman. I think she's like hugging me. I forget the title of that video, but yeah, I mean, so she understands what happened, how she blew it. So, I asked her to do the video and she did it. So, yep. So my lessons can be your breakthrough. Yeah, some things I want to make common knowledge. So anyway, guys, I'm going to sign out. Oh, wow, it's 2 hours, didn't I? Thought I would get out before that. Appreciate your feedback. You guys always have good comments, good questions. And yeah, share this video. Actually, guys need to hear this. They need to hear the full spectrum of what it means to go abroad, and how do you take care of yourself. I'm not going to use the word protect, because men don't need to be on the defense and protecting themselves against women, but you just need to take care of yourself. Have a great life. And if you're going to invite someone in it, she needs to be able to support and enhance your commitment to have a great life. And that kind of mindset will allow you to bring in the right people. Just don't go too far down the socioeconomic class, man. Can backfire. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot. I'll be back Sunday, and appreciate your support. And as I said, if you haven't gotten a copy of my book, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere. Yep. Thanks a lot, Big Exclusive. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Have a great weekend. And I'll talk to you soon, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.